Alrighty, I don't want to take away too much time from our wonderful panelists we'll be having today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started now. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening if you're not in California like most of our attendees are. But I just want to thank you all so much for joining our webinar for today. We will be hosting our third webinar for the 2022-2023 school year. Just as an intro, my name is Brianna and I am the Partnerships Assistant for Mind Out Loud. And prior to getting started, I just want to give a quick premise of what Mind Out Loud is for any new attendees we may have on the webinar today. So Mind Out Loud is a student-led mental health movement, and the program is made up of 25 wonderful students across the nation working towards raising mental health awareness, ending stigma, educating peers about suicide prevention, and advocating for the mental health and wellness of students across the world. So, without further ado, I'm going to be passing it off to our wonderful student rep, Annika, who will be introducing our panelists for today.
Thanks, Brianna. Hi, everyone. My name is Annika, and I just wanted to say that Mind Out Loud is grateful to host Margaret Burton. She is the Southern California Regional Program Manager for Bring Change and a registered yoga teacher and a registered children's yoga teacher, where she combines her love for mental health advocacy with her love of yoga. She's an adventurer, coffee lover, book enthusiast, traveler, hiker, and most importantly, a mental health advocate. We're also joined by Julia Bowie, a junior and a co-president of Bring Change to Mind at Napa High School. This is her third year in Bring Change to Mind. Julia is the outreach coordinator of the mental health nonprofit Mentis Teens Connect and is the president of her school's Project Lit Club, a group dedicated to discussing social change through literature. As for her activities, she loves to make music and to look at the sky.
Love seeing the chat already popping up. Thanks so much for the introduction, Annika. Hey y'all, as you just heard, I'm Margaret. I'm going to be sharing a little bit about my own journey with community care and advocacy and talking a little bit about Bring Change to Mind. And then I will have the pleasure to pass it off to Julia, one of our teen advisory board members here in California, to talk about her work that she's doing with Bring Change to Mind and spreading community care through her advocacy. So I'm going to screen share just for a second. So I'm not a totally random stranger to you all, or over this hour, I won't be. Yes, my name is Margaret. So I'm the Southern California Regional Program Manager for Bring Change to Mind. So we have 55 mental health school or clubs in high schools down here, and I help manage those clubs. Some random facts about me. I was born in Belgium. I'm British American. I'm pretty passionate and creative. As you heard in my bio, I'm a yoga teacher, which I love. I love reading and coffee. I love traveling. I love going to concerts. And I really love putting all of those things together in like one trip. So usually when I'm in a meeting, I really love to hear what concerts other people have gone to. But since we're in a webinar, I can't, well, actually, no, you could put in the chat. I would love to see if anybody here has been to a concert recently. I'll give it like 30 seconds. Julia, have you been to a concert recently?
I did a couple months ago. In November, I saw Mother Mother in San Francisco.
Wonderful. What kind of music are they?
It's like alternative rock. My friend invited me. I didn't know that much about them.
Okay.
And okay, I'll go. And then afterwards, I've been listening to them a lot.
Nice. Crystal said she hasn't been to a concert, but she really wants to see the 1975. I have seen them live, Crystal, and they're phenomenal. So good. So I do hope that you get to go see them live. Yeah, a school talent show totally counts for sure. Modern jazz, love jazz. I saw the Lady Gaga jazz show in Vegas. That was pretty wild. It was so good. Classical music concert, totally. And then, Olivia Rodrigo, nice. Oh my gosh, that must have been such a good concert. Well, thanks for sharing, everybody. A little random tangent, but I love to hear it. So my advocacy journey, when I was your guys' age in high school, I struggled with an eating disorder, and it took me a long time to recover. But in high school, my senior year in high school was when I really decided to like commit to recovery and try the whole recovery thing and see if life could be better, which it was. It's always wonderful to choose life. And I found a program in Northern California called Beyond Hunger. And so Beyond Hunger is kind of similar to Bring Change to Mind, which is a beautiful thing, and I'll talk a little bit more about later. But they are a nonprofit that works to educate about eating disorders. So educate and prevent eating disorders. So they go around to high schools to middle schools in the Bay Area. So I got to educate peers on the topic while also telling a little bit of my own story. And then I went to college. I moved down to Southern California. And there, I went to Cal State Fullerton, which was in Orange County. And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to relapse. So I tried to find some supports. And what happened when I went to the counseling center was, one, they said that they didn't deal with eating disorders and they referred me out, except I didn't have a car. So when you live in Orange County or Southern California, you really need a car to get anywhere. So I was kind of out of luck for getting help. And not only did they not have help, but it was kind of wild to me because Cal State Fullerton is the biggest Cal State in California. And there are only 2 UCs that have a higher population of students. So they have one of the highest student populations in all of California, plus they're in Orange County. And they just don't have anything for eating disorders. And I was like, this is ridiculous. So I decided that if there wasn't anything, that I was going to start something. I eventually found this nonprofit called Project Heal. And Project Heal helps to fundraise money to send people to treatment for eating disorders, because a lot of times insurance will deny claims for people to get help for eating disorders. So not only is it really difficult to reach out for help, but a lot of people find that once they even reach out, they're getting denied access to care. So Project Heal was huge for me. This was, Beyond Hunger was my first step in the advocacy world, and Project Heal propelled me forward. It helped me to help other people in the community who were going through similar things that I had gone through or I was going through. And I got to help in a lot of different ways, but the biggest thing, is helping fundraise money to get people access to care. And through that, I got a lot of really cool opportunities. When I was, I think I had just turned 20, so I wasn't 19 anymore, but so I wasn't technically a teenager, but I was in 17 magazine, which was awesome. So as you can see here, this third picture is me and 2 of my friends who I was in treatment with, and we were highlighted in the Body Peace issue. So on your advocacy journey, it is pretty wild things that come up and opportunities that might come your way. So when I was done with college, I decided, I was like, I like helping people, and I wanted to be a therapist. But I also really loved what I was doing with Project Heal. And so I realized, like, I don't actually have to be a therapist to work in the mental health field. I could probably find another nonprofit that is a mental health nonprofit and work there, because, like, I'm really good at this and I really like it. And I found Bring Change to Mind, which was mind blowing to me, because it had so many of the experiences that helped me in my own journey, and just all the random jobs I've had in my life, like all wrapped up into one job. So Bring Change to Mind is a national nonprofit that works to decrease the stigma surrounding mental illness. And we have our high school program where teens establish peer-led mental health clubs in their high schools. And going back to my own story, Beyond Hunger was quite similar. And that was the thing that really, really helped me when I was younger. So to think that I could be now on the other side and helping teens establish something that was very similar was so incredibly special to me. So I'm going to share a little bit about the Bring Change to Mind program with you all, so you know all the amazing things that these clubs do, the resources that we provide, and what is available to teens throughout the nation. So we were co-founded in 2010 by actress and activist Glenn Close, alongside with her nephew Kaylin and her sister Jessie. You all would most likely recognize Glenn as the OG Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians. But she is wildly famous. Definitely watch her movies, watch her TV shows. They're all amazing. So Kaylin and Jessie both struggle with their own mental illness. And one day, Jessie came to Glenn and she asked her if she would be able to use her celebrity status to really champion this cause around mental health. So they decided to go to Washington, D.C. They got a whole team of experts together and they looked at what organizations were doing across the US to ensure that they weren't going to duplicate efforts that were already happening and that other organizations were already working on. What they found in 2010 was that nobody was talking about stigma, which is kind of wild because that's like what everybody talks about now. But nobody was talking about it then. And they're like, this is what we need to do. Because this was also a really big part of Jessie and Kaylin's own journey. There was a lot of stigma surrounding their journey of healing. So this was a great message for them to start out with. So why is it important to talk about mental health when you are younger? What we have found is that 1 in 4 adolescents live with a mental health condition. To put that in perspective, you all are in classes, at a public school, like 25, it's very small, but more likely like 30 or 35. So, most likely there's like anywhere between 4 to 6 or maybe even more students who are struggling with a mental illness, and you probably have no idea. Research has shown us that half of all lifetime mental illnesses begin by the age of 14, which is your age when you're coming into high school. So we're really hoping that by getting the conversation started when these issues are starting, we can change this next statistic that shows that the average delay in treatment is 8 to 10 years after the onset of symptoms. That is so long to wait to get help. So by starting the conversation, educating your peers, educating yourself, hopefully everybody will reach out for support a lot earlier than 8 to 10 years. So when we started the high school program, we were just in the Bay Area with 25 clubs, y'all. We were so small our first year, and that was in 2015. So our high school program is not that old. And since then, we have expanded exponentially across the whole US. So we do have more than 440 clubs. And actually, I need to update this slide because we are now in 40 states with over 10,000 students. So we have hubs in Arizona, California, Indiana, New York City, the Northeast, and then our national clubs who are dotted here and there throughout the US. So not only are these teens doing amazing work at their schools, but they're a part of this community within their region. And then they're also a part of a movement that spans across the US, which is just awesome. It is so cool to feel like you are a part of something that is larger than yourself. So what are these clubs? First and foremost, they are peer-to-peer led. So you as teens are the ones who get to decide what you want to do, what you want to talk about, what issues are facing your campus that you think are important and that you want to change. The clubs are education advocacy based, and they are event and activity driven. So we do hope that our club members put on lots of different events and activities to help educate and advocate. They're open to any student. So we really encourage our clubs to make sure that they have freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, and that they have all representations in their club. Most importantly, though, the clubs aren't a form of counseling or therapy. So some people do ask, well, what happens in these clubs? And we remind them and encourage them to really make sure they are staying on that education advocacy path. And that if there's ever a crisis that comes up, or somebody's asking questions where you think they might need a little bit of extra support or help, there's always a staff member present at club meetings, and club leaders also know that they can get help from the staff member, but also to refer people to the help that they may need. One thing that puts us apart from other organizations out there is we're really, really proud to be evidence-based. So when we first started the program, we did put together a research team at UC Berkeley, and they did a 2-year study on the program. And what they found was that club participation is associated with improvement in mental health knowledge, improvement in mental health attitudes, and essentially an overall decrease in stigma surrounding mental health. So I really love pointing this out to all of our club members, because I want them to know that the work that they are doing at their schools, it has been proven to be effective, and that it works. So being evidence-based is always a great thing. These are some examples of activities that clubs have held. In the middle here, we have a compliment wall, we have yoga, we have journaling, we have a bulletin board, we have positive messaging, different campaigns. So our clubs are really doing anything creative they can come up with that helps to educate and advocate around mental health. Our club members also get a lot of opportunities when they become an official club. So they have access to our club portal, which has more than 45 club presentations in there. So all the material that they may need, national and local support resources, different activities and ideas, and anything else that's important to them. Each club gets a $500 grant to use for anything club related if they need to buy pizza for a club meeting, or they need to get materials to put on events and activities. That is what that grant is for. And they also get an awesome club kit at the beginning of the year. So this is for them to give out to their club members or to anybody at their school. They get a monthly newsletter with lots of good information. And one of our coolest opportunities for sure is our teen advisory board. So Julia is on our team advisory board, and every year we have one. It's a year-long commitment, and we pick about 20 to 22 teens from the state of California or in different regions to serve on this board. And we have like 80 students, 80 to 100 students who apply. So the teens who are accepted are pretty stellar and doing some cool things. So they get to gain and utilize leadership skills, and they really help us in developing our program. So our clubs are peer-led, but also we are a teen-driven organization from top down. So anything that we want to do nationally, programmatically, we always vet all of that information through our teen advisory board. If we're doing new things or want feedback on different things. They get to network with other leaders. And then these are the teams that we get to go to first for cool opportunities like this. So Julia will get to talk a little bit more about that. We have an annual summit, which is really fun. 2 years ago, we had Joshua Bassett in LA, which was it was amazing, actually. Like, he's my favorite speaker we have ever had. It was really, it was an emotional afternoon. He was great. And all of our club members get a free year-long subscription to Headspace, which is awesome. I would love to see in the chat if anybody uses Headspace. Julia, do you use Headspace?
I do use Headspace.
How do you like it?
That was one of my favorite parts of the club during social distancing years. It's when we can't meet in person, being able to do this on our own, and then that as like a gateway to using other types of meditation techniques has been really great.
Totally. Yes. Yes. Actually, I was talking to another teen who was saying he had a hard time with meditating. And I did mention to him that meditating isn't just sitting there and like clearing your thoughts, that there's lots of different kinds of meditations, and that sometimes you just have to try out the different ones and see what works for you. So I'm glad you brought that up. So that was my intro to Bring Change to Mind. You know, I'm really happy that my advocacy journey brought me to Bring Change to Mind, and that I now get to be on the other side and help teens and learn from you all. So I'm going to pass it off to Julia now for her to share all of the amazing work that she has been doing in her community.
Thank you, Margaret. And it was nice to get to hear all about your journey again, too. So my name is Julia Bowie. This is my third year in Bring Change to Mind. So I'm a junior, so I've been doing it since my freshman year. I got really lucky to get to join Bring Change to Mind because I entered freshman year in the fall of 2020. So there was very little connection between students. But I was in an event for another mental health nonprofit. They called Teens Connect, and I've been continuing to do leadership with them. So I was just in some random Zoom event with them. Like, I saw it on Instagram. I was like, okay, I'm bored. I'm at home during social distancing. Like, let's get on the Zoom. And the current president, or the president back then for my school's Bring Change to Mind club, was in there. And I think this has been the culture I found with Bring Change to Mind is just very welcoming, very accepting. So she reached out to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, you go to my school. Like, it's so nice to meet you. This is so great. Like, you should join our club. I think you'd be really interested in doing more mental health related stuff. And it was so nice to be invited like that. And that's one of my favorite parts of the Bring Change to Mind club, is just meeting so many welcoming people like that and kind of learning to do that myself also. So I started going to Bring Change to Mind meetings on Zoom that year. And throughout my life, I've had a lot of close family members and friends with serious mental health issues. And I mean, myself entering high school during a pandemic, it was really tough. I'm sure seems like some of you guys are high schoolers. So there was a lot of struggle there, but it was nice to have that kind of connection through club meetings. It became a way to connect with other people, mostly that were older than me, but other people who were interested in mental health advocacy, and to have that constant and that supportive group. And then I've continued being in Bring Change to Mind. And this year, I've become the co-president of my high school's chapter. So there are two other co-presidents, and we work together to plan everything. It sounds like, when I tell people that, it sounds like a lot. It's like, you need 3 people to run this club of not that many, of like 40 people-ish. And I think that also speaks to kind of the culture of Bring Change to Mind, is that it is very collaborative. Maybe I could do this all on my own. Maybe any of them could do it all on their own. But it's nice to be a club that's about initiating conversations about mental health, about listening to student voice and different student ideas. So basically, the more people, the better. And we do get a lot more done that way. I also joined the Teen Advisory Board, like Margaret mentioned, last semester, and met a lot more like-minded people, but this time from all over California. So what I've been doing as a co-president of Bring Change to Mind and in the club, Margaret talked a little bit about summits. That's been one of the really fun parts of this club, is getting to go. Our last Northern California one was in Oakland, and then we did one before that at the Giant Stadium in San Francisco. And it's a little bit of a celebration of mental health, but also educational. And I found that's the theme for Bring Change to Mind, is doing things that teenagers want to do, so we engage them, and at the same time having that educational aspect. Because I mean, if we do things that are fun, the more people get engaged, and the more awareness we can spread. But at the same time, that is a form of community care, and caring for each other's mental health is just being together and connecting with other people that will be supportive of mental health conversations. So the summit was really fun. There's all kinds of self-care activities, like making slime, painting, making cards for friends, photo booths, and it's all, things that are trendy, seem very appealing to teens. But there were also like breakout sessions of let's talk about intersectionality in mental health. Let's talk about family connections in mental health. So it's that balance of the serious conversations that you feel like you can have once you're in this safe, like laid back, welcoming space. That's one of my favorite aspects of school clubs in general, is that's kind of the inherent idea is community care, because it's things that you could be doing on your own, like learning about mental health, learning about self-care, but having this space to do that and the people and the time and like, cut out to do this is really great. So some things that we do in club meetings, a lot of the times it's very simple, like meditations, gratitude activities. Last Monday, we did an activity suggested on the club portal called 13 Reasons Why Not, which is, to our club members at least, that was a very attention-grabbing name. We scroll, it's very collaborative, like I said, so we scrolled through the list of activity ideas on the portal at the beginning of the year, and they saw 13 Reasons Why Not, and we're like in an uproar. They're like, oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. That's such a funny name. And so we did the activity yesterday, and it sounds very like casual, very laid back, but what it ends up being is a gratitude activity to and then we share it all with each other. It's basically a gratitude list of like reasons that life is beautiful, reasons to be grateful for life, and we all share it with each other. Today we did a suicide prevention training at our school, that because of having a club like Bring Change to Mind at school, we can organize and bring certified instructors to our school and teach people skills to recognize signs of suicide and help people that are struggling with suicidal ideation. In general, that educational aspect of Bring Change to Mind has been extremely helpful for anyone this age as we're discovering our identities. There's like stigma is very real, as you all know, which is why you're here. But education breaks that stigma, and it's a lot harder to struggle on your own. And that doesn't just mean you don't have a support system, which Bring Change to Mind provides some sort of peer support system, but also not knowing what's going on with yourself, not knowing what's going on with your peers. So we also do a lot of presentations that are provided by the club portal. We do check-ins with other club members. Like we've set up buddy systems before, where like an underclassman connect with an upperclassman, and the prompt is like to have conversations about mental health or about mental health goals. We've done self-care kits around the time of finals. Because of the grants that Bring Change to Mind provides, we can put together stuff like Play-Doh and fidget toys and stickers and tea and stuff like that, and just give them out to people as a little like token of things that they can actually do for self-care, but also like a little fun, hopeful token for them during finals. Like Margaret said, those statistics about 1 in 4 youth live with a mental health condition. Most people have the onset before the age of 14. All of those statistics are things that are heard all the time within Bring Change to Mind clubs, because we have this centralized portal. So within like people in my club at my school will all have heard that before, and we do like Kahoots on it. We do like activities for prizes at the summit that'll be discussed again. That's how we get people to join the club when we're advertising it. It's like, oh, you should join us. This is why it's important. So these are serious issues, serious statistics, but they get presented in this way that's very welcoming to peers, and it just will float around in a lot of people's heads now because of the awareness that we're able to spread. Another important aspect to me of this club is intersectionality. So Brianna mentioned, or Annika mentioned earlier, that I'm also the president of a club at my school that's dedicated to literature and education about the world through literature. So this club was also founded this club was founded in 2020. So it was around the peak of, or not the peak, but a big surge in the Black Lives Matter movement, and a lot of hate going on racially and social politically at that time. And Um, so it's important to me to speak out about issues like that too, because they do affect mental health. So it's all kind of connected. I'm also in the leadership of my school's Gender Sexuality Alliance Club, or GSA. So it's important for Bring Change to Mind to provide this safe space for people of all sorts of minority identities as well. And there are all kinds of presentations on the portal that are also about specific issues pertaining to specific minority groups, specific kinds of identity or like circumstantial issues that someone might have, and how that can affect mental health, and how that can affect the stigma in their culture, how they can reach out to different resources. An opportunity that I had during my freshman year was during May of 2021. There was a big rise in Asian hate crimes against AAPI people during the pandemic. And my club president at that time reached out. Okay, for context, my school has very, very few Asian American people. I'm probably like one of like 5 people in my grade of like 400. So it's like maybe 2% Asian American at my school. But first, I was reached out to by club members, not just the presidents, but also people in the club when this was happening and it was all over the news. Like, how are you doing? Or how is this affecting your mental health? Like, do you want to talk to me about anything? And that's always a nice thing to have, is just peers who will check in with you, friends and connections that are built that way through this club. But then the club president asked me if I would like to present or like to speak to the club about my experience with mental health as an AAPI person in Napa. And so I did. I collaborated with another girl who was Korean like me in our club. And she was a couple years older than me at the time. And we sat down and we brainstormed. And it was a very cathartic conversation to have, to talk about our identities, how they affect our mental health and our families, and our feelings of safety and an uncertainty, and triggering of all kinds of past trauma during this time in the news. So we sat down and we had a conversation about that. And then we put together some resources, including a presentation for our club's members who had most of them had never thought about this before, or really talked about this, or personally identified with this. So they got to hear from their peers about how it affected them. And we also put together some resources for social media discussing this issue as well. And that was a great experience for so many reasons. One, for myself and for the other girl I was working with, it was very relieving to be able to have someone to connect with because of this club, and to be able to have these conversations. And there were so many things like, oh my gosh, we've had the same experience, or oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that this happens in our town, or I didn't even realize how this has affected me until we talk about it. So it was great to have a way to reach out like that. Also, it was great for my development of being able to share out about my personal experiences that are important and relevant to the issues in the world. It was great for the club members who can hear from their peers about this issue. And in general, it just creates discussions, creates awareness, and that all reduces stigma. I think the Bring Change to Mind Club in high schools, in my experience, has been all about connection to other people, whether it's individual relationships within the club, connections to chapters everywhere, like in the Teen Advisory Board, or at summits when you get to meet people from a bunch of different schools, connection to resources, like on social media, on the portal, all kinds of educational resources. There's a lot of connection that goes on, and a lot of awareness and education that happens because of it. And it's really cool to see how through individual people's work, it all connects and helps create this impact. And like Margaret said, being part of a bigger project of reducing stigma. That's all I have to say about my experience with Bring Change to Mind at my school. Margaret, are we on to Q&A, or are there other topics we wanted to cover?
Oh, Q&A is next if there are questions. Thanks so much, Julia. That was amazing. It's so like I get to hear what you all do a little bit, but I always love to hear these more like personal stories of how being in the club, how it's helped. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me again.
Hi, I'm Mandate Loud Student Representative Helena, and I'll be overseeing the Q&A today. Please put any questions you have about Bring Change to Mind in the form in the chat, because we only have a few questions, but they covered so much wonderful stuff, and I loved hearing about it. So yeah, let's get started with the first question. What is the goal of Bring Change to Mind, and what does the name mean?
Good. Yeah, good question. So the goal is to decrease stigma surrounding mental illness. And then what does the name mean? I have not had a like personal conversation with the founders about this, but I mean, I would just imagine like we're bringing change to people's minds.
Yeah, I guess the interpretation of it is quite literal, but just changing your mind about mental health in general. Julia, do you got anything to add?
Yeah, for the meaning of Bring Change to Mind, some of our slogans are the future is stigma free, and we are the change. I think it said that on a shirt that you showed in one of your pictures. And yeah, it's pretty literal, that pun on bringing it to mind, but also mental health.
Okay. Question for each of you, answer however you would like. What are your unique way of advocating for mental health?
Julia, you can start.
Okay. For me, as a student, as every way I identify, as like a friend, a sister, a daughter, the best way that I found to advocate for mental health is through personal relationships. So checking in with my friends, asking them frequently how they're doing, like letting them know that they can talk to me, letting them know that feeling mentally unwell is normal, and that there are ways to get help, that there are resources available. Not always in a super clinical way either, like help is here if you need it, like I sound like I'm reading a slogan or something, but just being a good friend and trying to really connect with the people around me is my personal most effective way to advocate for mental health.
Can I interject? I absolutely love that sentiment, and I totally agree with it. And it's also kind of how I and a lot of other Mind Out Loud student representatives kind of go about advocating mental health, because we are students. We don't go out into the world a lot. We just have our close friends and the people we meet every day. And just by being there for them, that's how our little difference can perhaps spread to a wider audience. And I love that Bring Change to Mind also encapsulates that. Margaret, how about you? What's your unique advocating way?
Loved these answers. I actually like this question because I was reflecting on this kind of a similar question recently. Since I told the beginning of my story, you know, my early advocacy years, my advocacy was big. Like it was like leading and planning and organizing. But over the years, I mean, I still kind of do that stuff, but my advocacy is not as loud as it was. So it's more like what Julia was saying. Like I like, you know, checking in with people. I guess also like a little bit leading by example. And leading by example doesn't mean necessarily like being the picture of health, like mental health wellness, like it's being real and human. So like being like, oh yeah, like if I'm not feeling good, like I can talk about that, because when you allow yourself to do those things, you also allow the people around you to do that as well. And I think I think that's really where, like, lately, that's where my journey has been taking me, especially since I work so much with youth. Like, I try and be real with the kids that are kids too, kids and teens that I work with.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between being a loud and forward presence and just the person that's always there who can rely on, who's like a mentor and guiding. And having somebody who's talking about mental health, being open and honest with their struggles, even if they're just having a shit day, like, okay, I'm not doing great today. This is what's been going on in my life. Actually think adults have problems too makes the kids feel better.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, love those answers. Next question. What does self-care look like for you?
Margaret, do you want to start?
Sure, yeah. Oh gosh, self-care, I mean, it looks like a bajillion different things. I think to me, it looks like, what do I need in the moment? I think something I do like to share about self-care with people is that self-care isn't just like doing nice things for yourself. I think, like, for me, like, self-care, the most important part of self-care for me is doing all the hard things, and like the really mundane things in life that, like, long-term make me feel better. So like making my bed, going grocery shopping. There's a quote that I really love. I forget who it's by, but it's a woman, and she said, "Do you have the discipline to be a free spirit?" And that's something I tell myself a lot, because I'm like, okay, like I don't want to go grocery shopping, or I don't want to do whatever. And I'm like, but if I want to be well and grounded, I got to do those things.
Yeah, I agree that self-care is often really difficult. It's kind of marketed sometimes as like, oh, let's do cutesy activities, which that can be a really great form of self-care. But yeah, lately what I've been thinking about a lot is forgiveness of myself and of others, of like being less hard on myself, like remembering that I am learning and growing, and that other kinds of affirmations that make me believe, no, everything is not horrible. Like, let's take a step back. And then forgiveness of others too, and just extending compassion to myself and to others, because even when it's others, it takes more off of myself. So that's a form of self-care. I do that a lot through journaling. I love to journal. Um, and then also spending time with other people has been, or doing activities that I like, has been a way for me to de-stress lately. Margaret, you said you like to go to a lot of concerts. I go to a lot of concerts for different reasons, because I do a lot of performing arts. Someone said they went to a classical music concert lately. Last Sunday, I got to play the orchestra part for Bruch Violin Concerto, if you happen to know that one. So that was really fun. And then the day before that, I was singing at an a cappella extravaganza. So stuff like that. I like music because it allows me to immerse myself and express myself in a kind of healthy way.
So, quick reminder, please put your questions that you have for Margaret and Julia in the form in the chat. Be awesome. So to sum it up, Margaret, you self-care by doing the stuff that you find hard, but you know would be good for you.
Yeah. I do like a lot of fun things too, though. Those are, I feel like people talk about that a lot more, you know?
But actually doing the stuff that is difficult can be more beneficial in the long run.
Yeah.
And so I like your experience to showing that. And Julia, you find self-care is mostly emotional and de-stressing, and you particularly turn to music, which is a brilliant form of self-expression and a creative outlet, which Mind Out Loud done some awesome things with music and self-expression. So yeah, I completely agree with you. Also stress and time with friends. Yes, completely, yes. Teenagers need that. Okay. Me, my self-care. I started skincare rituals, even just like, even though I don't really need it, it's just taking that time and those emotions every day to do something for myself, just a few minutes. Even that simpleness, which is part of actual self-care, like personal self-care, it can also be an emotional self-care. So I thought that was really interesting. Okay, and last question so far, please put your questions in the form. How do I get a Bring Change to Mind Club started in my region?
Oh, great question. So to get a Bring Change to Mind Club started, you just need to go to our website, bringchangetomind.org. In the chat here, or I'll put it later. We have an application form located in the website. We will receive your application, and if we have space, which we currently do, it's pretty easy to get a club started. You just need 2 to 3 students who are interested and passionate about mental health and getting a club up and running, and are most likely going to take leadership roles since you're getting it started. And then one staff member who will be a club advisor. And then from there, us as regional program managers help you get the club up and running and everything that you need to know and all the resources that you need. So it's not too difficult, which is good.
Yeah, I would be interested in doing a Bring Change to My club in my area, but you know, senior.
Yeah,
but I will encourage the freshmen and sophomores I know
exactly
to do it because you know it's just so empowering that even a simple mental health club, having one on campus, just even at the club rushes and everything, just even seeing it in the corner of your eye or like posters at somewhere, that just opens people's minds a lot more, and it makes it easier to change their mind in the future and lower the stigma, which is what Bring Change to Mind Pleasure is all about. Julia, do you have any questions?
I think it's really great that you're thinking about or asking about starting a club. And yeah, like Margaret said, there's a super straightforward process for getting one set up. And I would say not to be intimidated once you do start, if you do, or once you do start a club at your school, because Bring Change to Mind is such a well organized organization. And like Margaret showed, there's all kinds of like physical resources that you get, and managers for every region that will walk you through personally how to manage your club, how to run a meeting, pretty much anything you need. There's so much support in this club, so it's great that you're thinking of starting one.
Yeah. Another question along these lines, which I'm just astonished at, they have chapters and managers for regions, and I'm just like, wow, this is so like professional. And just where it started, it's astonishing. Over the past few years, it's just evolved so much. Now back to the question. Sorry, I rambled a bit. Do the Bring Change to Mind clubs across different regions ever collab on events? If so, I would love to see an event with the different chapters. Do you like convene at any areas or what?
Yeah, sometimes. So for example, we actually have Bring Change to Mind Week coming up in 2 weeks. So it is an annual week that we hold to activate all of our clubs throughout the US at the same time. So we have an overall theme that we pick every year. This year's theme is cultivating connections. And then there are sub themes for every single day. And then we literally lay out the whole thing. So like we have a guidebook and we put 5 different recommended activities that a club can choose from that fits with the theme for that day. One of the days, I can't remember what the name for that day was, but it does encourage club members to reach out to other clubs. And we have a map of all of the clubs on our website, and we hyperlinked it in the club guidebook. So they're always welcome to connect with other clubs and to do something. We did a lot of that actually during the pandemic, which was wonderful. We did national club calls, which were more actually quite like this. But then there were we used to have like a buddy program. We've done a few different things, but yeah, there's definitely ways for clubs to connect with other clubs throughout the US. And we always encourage it because it's really cool to see.
I am absolutely astonished that you guys hold like national club or member meetings, because the time differences. I mean, we've struggled a bit with that in Mind Out Loud, but having national with people all over the country.
Yeah,
I'm
so there's a
astounded
sweet
in a good
spot.
way.
There is. We found it. That was during pandemic times though. So it would be interesting. It is still a sweet spot, the time we found, but it would be interesting to see participation levels now that everybody is kind of back into everything.
I think one of the last questions, what is your vision for Bring Change to Mind in the next few years? And Julia, I would love to hear from you, because as a student and who's participated ever since beginning high school, you've grown along with it.
Yeah, I feel like I am such a small part of the bigger movement of Bring Change to Mind. Like I've been in it my entire high school experience, but the club has been at my school probably about, I don't know how many years now. I want to say about 10 years now. So my vision for my school is that the club keeps going, at least as long as it has, that that more awareness and more destigmatization is spread. I think any progress, even if slow, is good progress. But for more students to be educated on mental health, on not just facts, but also resources, knowing how to support themselves and support others, and to, in general, just create a culture at my school of, I think the theme is community care. So that kind of environment where someone can just show up at school and be like, wow, I feel really supported here. I feel like this is a place that is very supportive of mental health. So that's my vision for the part I'm leading, which is my school.
Love it. Yeah, one thing we always tell our students when they're graduating is like, you guys are leaving a legacy at your school through this club, which they are, and it's cool to see. I mean, especially with Julia's club, like her club has been there since almost the beginning of the high school program, and completely student driven, and they've kept it up themselves, which is phenomenal. At the higher level, we definitely we're looking at expanding the high school program. Our biggest goal is to be in every high school in the nation. So huge high level goal, but we do want to be at least in every state, which we're getting pretty close to now. And we also are hoping to expand a middle school program. So we're piloting a middle school mental health club program right now in Indiana and in Southern California. So we are hoping to be able to roll that out on a larger scale in the next few years.
Amazing. So we're basically almost done. Such a shame. But yeah, I'm still kind of stuck on the fact that it's been at your school for 10 years, and that's over the last few years. There's been a huge spike in mental health awareness, but 10 years ago, that I'm not even 20 yet, so that's like amazing. I'm completely love Bring Change to Mind, and we do have like to go now, but I just think Bring Change to Mind is like a big group hug. That's my impression of it. I knew a tiny bit about it beforehand, but it's just like a huge big group hug. And I will pass it to Brianna because I ramble.
No worries, Helena. Thank you so much for an amazing Q&A session. It's very informative. So again, we just want to thank all of our attendees and our amazing panelists and External Relations Committee for being able to join and facilitate our February workshop. I'll be posting the feedback form again in the chat for you guys to give feedback for our hosts. And feel free to follow us and keep up with us on our social media handles as we get ready for our March workshop and our highly anticipated annual event coming up on April 27th. So again, have a good night, guys, and feel free to let us know if you have any questions or concerns. Take care.